Okay, so this is part 5 of my win in the Big 33 for $2,000 that took place on May 31st, 2016. We're on the final 2 tables right now. We just won a nice sized pot. We have a pretty good stack at this point. You know, we're trying to do what we can heading into the final 2 tables. Yes, I can see its window, and we will continue. Next hand after Ace Queen. Pick up 6-8. Probably going to fold, just making sure. Yep. Pick up Ace Queen again. So we raise, call on the button. We see a 3-bet from an active 3-betting stack. So when he's 3-betting this wide, I'm figuring that we got to... This is an interesting spot. I was thinking about it a lot afterwards. I do end up going for the 4-bet. The reason why I go for the 4-bet rather than other decisions, I'm not going to fold. He's got such a wide range that our Ace-Queen offsuit is ahead of a vast majority of his 3-betting range. However, if he 5-bet piles, I am going to fold Ace-Queen offsuit. And so then that begs the question, why don't you just call with it then? If it's so strong that but you're still going to fold to a 5-bet. I elect not to just call because how well does Ace-Queen off really play post-flop? Ace-Queen suited at least gives you flush draw potential. Ace-Queen offsuit, you have to play it just for its pair value. So he could still have Ace-King. Aces, kings, queens, still in his range, and so he can barrel off in those, and it's kind of hard to continue, even though we are in position. So I'd rather kind of make a value bluff merge 4-bet with Ace-Queen off. I think this is a good size to do it. Even though he was 3-betting really wide, he wasn't getting out of line. He hadn't 5-bet piled. He wasn't a button clicker. He seemed like he was playing accordingly, so it seemed like a good spot. And then this happens. We see a jam from the button, which I'm immediately putting him on kings, which feels most disgusting. I only need 24% to call here, and I'm thinking, if he has just kings, I have to fold. However, he can also, I've seen players in these late stages really kind of screw up their thought process. They initially just call with hands like pocket jacks, 10s, and 9s pre-flop because they don't want to make a huge pot. And then when the pot starts getting big, they say, fuck it, I don't want to be pushed out. Like that's honestly what their way of thinking is. So they just jam because they feel that the other players are full of it, trying to take advantage of them because they don't understand, the hands that well. So those hands are in their range too. Getting only 24, you need only 24% to call. Like I need to put my money in here if he's ever got jacks, 10s or 9s. We block aces and queens. Obviously he can have aces and queens, but he's going to have far fewer combos of those because we have one of them each in our hand. So the main thing I'm worried about here is pocket kings. In this instance, needing 24%, we do call. He has pocket kings, and we don't get there. So that sucks. So it's been an up and down roller coaster. We go down, we win some flips, we win some all-ins, we go down, win, go down. So it's been a ride for sure. So now we're back down to 16 big blinds. And this is where I started to get frustrated. But then you have to realize I still have chips this deep in a tournament. If you tilt off right now, the amount of equity you lose in the long run just makes you such a losing player. So we just got to start it up again. Just know what we got to do. Jam over min open. They'll get the fold. 19 bigs. Just work it back up again. Grind up the stack. That's honestly the way you have to approach it. And now we're down to 5-handed here. I don't know if another player comes. We'll see in a sec. I'm definitely not opening 4-7 off. And I'm not opening queen 6. Another player does come, Giordano KK. So that means that we are down to the final 12 players. And I have king queen offsuit. 15 big blinds. This is barely an all-in. I'm just kind of praying nobody snaps me off with ace king or ace queen, which is, what doesn't happen. So it's good. We go from there, 17 bigs. Min open. For what it's worth, I would, even on this stack size, still defend this hand. But we see a jam, so I fold, calls, Bertelson's sucks out on the turn. Ace king against king queen. So now we're down to 11 players. I'm not in the best of shape. I think at this point I was like 9th or 8th in the tournament, with Bertelson's having all the chips. Heaps. Huss does have a fair number of chips too at 237,000. But I mean, you still got to think about it. For all the players I'm new out there, new to tournaments, I won this tournament. And I had 16 big blinds right now, with these players having a lot. Never give up, man. You got to stay focused. And we would have jammed over Bertelson's open, and if these players folded, but in this case, when he jams, we're not calling. Ace-9 suited, jamming. There is a chart, Jennifer chart, team.grips.com. You can find it under the MTT tab. It just basically, it's a pretty standard chart where it shows what kind of hands to be going all in with in certain ante levels, and like how many big blinds you have, and like what position you are on the table, like how many players you have left to act behind you. And so I just kind of generally use, you know, a variation of that, kind of my own fixes as well. 10-5 off. I'm even folding against this. This is kind of a spot where I could defend getting great odds, but I don't want to have to find a spot post flop where I put all my money in with a 10-5 off. So it just a spot that's not going to flop too well for the hand. Just basically looking for pairs, and the pairs are not even that strong. So we give a walk to this player. Looking for a spot right now because we're folding deuce 5, but we are going to play 10s all in, just as we would if we had a weaker hand. We got to play our stronger hands for all ins at this point. That way we get more action. If we had aces there, for what it's worth, I'd all-in it as well on that stack size. That way, you know, it gives us action from all the times we shove. This was a mistake, this hand. I was still in the defending mode, so I defended from the big blind. I should have realized Bertelson's was opening super wide from late position trying to steal from us. This should have been an all-in. Instead, you know, he bets small. So we only need 21% to continue, so I float, but it's tough to float because of our stack size. And so on this turn, he makes it this size. We still only need 22,000, but now he's said to be able to put us all in on the river. So we have to fold. So because of our short stack size, we should have moved on pre-flop, and I made another mistake, and I'm down to 13 big blinds. I still won this tournament somehow. Tournaments, man. You can make mistakes and still win. You just have to know what's up. So folds to us. No, it doesn't. We have like no big blinds, but we're all in with an ace, and we really don't want to be called here because this is a hand that has blockers to the hands that can call us, but when we are called, we're fucked. Which is good that they don't get called. Fold queen 8, get pocket jacks. I'll see what's up. We get a min raise, we get a jam, so we re-raise, you know, folds. This player has ace 5, and he flops an ace, and we don't get there. Yes, somehow we won this tournament after having 3 big blinds. Yeah, we went down to 3 big blinds in this tournament. You can't give up when you have no chips. You just got to know how to put your money in and what you can do with the remaining chips you do have. I have basically like 3x starting stack on the final table bubble. Basically, we're on the final 11 players, and I am 11th out of 11th, obviously. And then basically, like at this point, I have too much invested to fold, so I'm all in. And then he calls, and then this player raises, and this player folds. And this is like what happened earlier when we had the pocket queens. These players, when we're short, love to be donating to us. It's awesome. The problem is, I realize I'm thinking at first, great, Giordano has just isolated us. This is awesome. We're going to be heads up. Then I realize in his stack size, he's only ever isolating us if he has aces or kings, which is true. And we get there. We get there. Aces beaten by a straight. What up? And we're back. We got 10 bigs. Not really back. We're still doing stuff. Instead of being critically endangered, we're just now endangered. Danger zone. Instead of the critically endangered zone, now it's just the danger zone. So we fold here. We would have shoved on the button, but not there. With queen 9, we fold 3-5. Queen jack. If anybody shoved or raised or whatever, we were putting our money in with queen jack. It's good enough equity against their holdings, but it actually folds to us, so we get a walk. Queen 5 off suit. We fold. 6-7 suited. Folds to us. We jam. It's part of the charts. 10 big blinds. Button. 6-7. We jam. We get it through. 8-4. We fold. 10-9. Pretty sure we fold. That's correct. Ace jack. Willing to get this in. He min raises on the button. We jam. He does fold like I predicted because he's opening way too many hands trying to exploit us, which he did before when we had the king 10 just flatted, but now we figured out it's better just to rejam because he's opening so wide and he's just going to fold. He has not enough hands that can continue versus a jam. Fold here. Pick up 6-9, we fold. Pick up 7-5, we fold. Gotta wait. We get queen jack. I mean, this is kind of at the bottom of the charts, but we do jam this for 14 big blinds. Don't really want to be called. If we are calling, just like hoping it's like under pair or like ace king, so at least we have live cards. We get rejammed on. So we have all our chips in the middle, so we need to win this hand. We're up against ace king. We need a queen dealer. We get a queen. There's an ace with it too. So we get another queen in the river. Bingo. 2 bingo rivers saved us, and now we're back in the tournament. Tournaments, man, is so fucking crazy. Now we have 29 bigs, so we're back. We're not in the danger zone anymore. Now we're in the just like whatever zone. We're not going to call it 3x even blind versus blind. The hand is bad as jack 6. 3-7. We're going to fold. King 3. Now we can start applying pressure though if we do get the chance. 6-9. We're going to fold. Do 7. We're going to fold. 6-4 suited. We face a jam. This player's not getting lucky for what it's worth. He had 63 bigs. Remember that. Now he's got half the amount of chips we have. You just gotta stay focused. You never know what can happen in tournaments. You never stop playing until you run out of chips. Remember that in tournaments. Never give up until you run out of chips. We don't play deuce 10, but we do play my favorite hand. All right. Min raise, call. We flop top set. This is interesting. Because heads up, I would definitely check. I highly considered c-betting small here because they have hands that can have some equity against us. But really the only hand we're worried about here is 7-8. Because the board is, the board's not wet in any other way. It's dry. It's a Badoogie board. It's like, there's no flush draws. The only draw there is 7-8. So we do check back. Trying to give players the opportunity to bluff at it because we have the board so locked up. This is what I'm talking about earlier about checking back with our weak hands, checking back with our top set monsters on the flop so we can play more aggressively on later streets. 7-8 does get there, so I'm not liking that. But it still checks through, and I'm expecting somebody to bet here if they have 7-8 or check raise my bet if they do. So I go for a bet, probably, what size is it? Like 40-ish%. And we get a check call, so I'm figuring I'm pretty good here. I'm figuring he's pretty capped in this spot. And so I don't want to jam. Jamming would be theoretically correct because he's capped, but at the same time I'm feeling like I can still bet large like this and make it still look like a bluff. I mean, I think the sizing is fine. Because he's capped, some players are going to argue that we should be betting smaller because we want to get value from our aces. But if you want to be balanced, from more of a game theory optimal perspective, we should be betting on the larger side here because if he has a capped range, we should be betting larger with our entire range that we're continuing with. Both our value hands and our bluffs. So we'll win more money from that in the long run. And some people, of course, will argue that, well, this tournament isn't the long run, this is a specific tournament. But I like just trying to stay somewhat GTO so I don't go into too much of a donk mode. Too much of a tournament donk mode, So we win those chips, 199,000, basically 200K. We get queen 3, we fold. We get ace 7, we do go for the open. We get defend on this flop. We do have backdoor diamonds, and we have an ace high against a wide button, big blind defending range. So I am okay with a check back here. If we didn't have backdoor diamonds, I'd probably be c-betting, but because we have some added equity that I don't want to get check raised off of, I'm fine with checking here. He bets, we turn a 7, so we turn a pair. 10-8 gets there, but he's still going to be bluffing with hands like queen 10, and sometimes he'll have some jack 10s, 9-10s that he likes to start betting with. So we're not ahead of those yet, but we are ahead of the other bluffs. So we do call, and diamond completes in the turn, and he bets small, and some players will be like, oh, he's trapping you. No. I figured there's a very good chance when he takes this line that he's got a hand here like jack 10, a hand that was still pretty strong in the turn, but then on the river is just, top pair, medium kicker. And we would play ace 9 of diamonds this same way. So, all in. And he folds. So we turn our hand to a bluff. On the flop, we have, category 4 type hand. A hand that's like decent. We don't really want much to do with it. We don't really want to start bluffing with it because we have some equity, but it's not great. On the turn, you pick up a category 2 hand. And on the river, it's a hand that we were turning into a bluff. So we had marginal value on the turn, and on the river, I think our marginal value is just too weak to continue with, and so we turn into a bluff and win. We would play hands like ace king of diamonds there too, the same way, because you know me, I like to check back my ace king of diamonds because my ace king in general in those spots versus the big blind defending ranges because we're already ahead so often just by having an ace high. that when we have the flush draw to go with it, it's a great candidate to also check. So when the flush does come in, we have it in our range. And we're going to defend here with King Jack. 2 aces. He does bet small. Again, he loves the small bet sizes. My thoughts are that he does have more ace-x than we do, and he knows that. But we have the king of spades, so we do have the backdoor nut flush type deal. We also have like the nut blocker. And also we have king high in a spot where he's going to be c-betting with a wide part of his range. So I'm fine with floating, seeing what's up. We could actually have the best hand. And if we don't, we can improve to like spades and see what's up. Checks. He continues betting, pretty fair size. And because we didn't pick up a spade, I'm not going to continue. I would check call if that was a spade because he can still be bluffing here. And also, you know, we have added equity. Also, we have a king or a jack we picked up here. I'd also call this. So when the turn comes king, jack, or spade, I'm continuing. It's just in this instance, you know, when it's like a brick like this and he keeps betting, I'll let him have it. So it's always good to understand what kind of cards to continue with and what kind of range you put villain on. I have him on ace-x, but I also have him on enough random bluffs. Ace-7. I like to limp here. If he was shorter, I'd shove, but he's got 25 bigs. I don't want to raise and get jammed on and have to make a decision to call off with ace-7 offsuit. So I actually limp. I was planning a limp calling rather than limp shoving. And he checks. I check with my ace high. I check with my continued ace high. And then he never has any king x here. So I go for a sick value bet. It's probably not that sick. It's probably actually standard. It just felt sick to me at the time. And he probably thought it was weird. He heroed me with jack 4, jack high. Wants to be a hero. We got some value. If he was a good player, I'd have to bet a little bit larger on the river, I think, just because I'm not super balanced in my small bets there. So I only have kind of marginal showdown value. So I'd either be checking or betting larger. I can't bet that small, but versus a station, more of a station like this player, I can make it, you know, I can do some more exploitative plays like that. All right, let's get to this final table already. At this point, we're on the final 10, for what it's worth. This final table bubble took a while. Nobody wanted to get eliminated. It was pretty funny. And you'll see that. It just players keep shoving and getting there. And it was more so on the other table. But at this point, because I have a big stack compared to them, 36 bigs versus like 23 big blinds and less, I'm trying to do whatever I can to steal. So king 3. We flop 2 pair. We're going to go for a bet here. And then, you know, get the fold. King 5, we'll see what's up. We get the walk. Sweet. 6-3, we'll see what's up. We're going to fold. 6-3, was that the exact same hand? 6 of spades, 3 hearts? Oh, no, flipped. Okay. So this is the final table. These players have to wait for the button to go past them to play, but we are at the final table. And I continue trying to steal versus players who I don't think are going to want to get too out of line on the start of the final table. And so we see a defend. And even though we flop a pair, which, you know, popular wisdom would say to check here, I think it's a decent spot to go for a small bet, kind of turning our hand into a bluff. He's not going to have that many ace-x. On a 16 big blind stack, he is very often going to be rejamming pre-flop, so he has like no ace-x. So he basically has no hands here that he's going to be able to continue with, unless he turns everything into a bluff. He'll have a lot of kind of lower broadways, kind of like, you know, queen-jack hands here. And so this is kind of like a very thin value bet type deal, trying to take the pot down here. I hate using that terminology, trying to take the pot down, but honestly, he has no hands here that can call this bet, and so we don't want to give him free equity by checking, and so we can just win, which we do. And we're at the final table. So at this point, we're going to play a little more snug. I will list out the payouts. At this point, 9th gets $190. This is all in US. 9th gets $190. 8th, $260. 7th gets $350. 6th gets $450. 5th gets $600. 4th gets $800. 3rd gets $1,100. 2nd gets $1,500. And 1st gets nearly $2,000. I think the exact value is around $1,932. And the exact value for 2nd was like $1,450. So I rounded up a little bit on those last ones, but besides that, for the most part, these are pretty exact. I just kind of rounded for all those numbers. And so yeah, it's pretty significant at this point. And we are, after having 3 big blinds at one point in the final 2 tables, we are coming into the final table 2nd in chips. Christie has 50 bigs, and we have 39 bigs. Makeko has 33 bigs. Besides that, everybody else has less than 20 big blinds. And what I love too is that these players that have more big blinds than me are to my right. The shorter stacks have 18, 15, 17, 14, 18, and 17 big blinds each. Because the final two tables was drawn out so long, the average stack really became shallow. Just because the final two tables took longer than it should have, because players were playing much more patiently and cautiously. So we'll be able to take advantage of that at some points. But for now, we're going to fold some garbage. We're going to fold a deuce 8. We're going to fold 9-4, 8-6. I do fold. We open 8-7 suited because Lightbook lost a flip to Nicky loose. And so basically no one's going to want to bust here. So we can apply a lot of pressure to these stacks and then have position on these stacks here. So of course, if Lightbook goes all in, we'll just call. It's like another big blind. But at the same time, if he folds, we can apply a lot of pressure post-flop to these other stacks that have position on us. In this case, we get the folds. So we just win the chips. Steal from under the gun, like a pro. So, I mean, in this case, everybody folds, and we only need 25% to call here with 5-10 offsuit. So we do call versus the 3 big blind shove from under the gun. We actually have 39% equity against ace 4. Fortunately, we don't get there after flopping a straight draw, but it was a correct call versus his range. Versus like everything, it's fine, unless he's got aces. But even then, his range is so wide that it's going to be fine. We fold 3-8. Shove. He wins again. Ace-9 against King-5. And now we have King-4. We go for a steal. Unfortunately, we get jammed on. We are not calling. Let's go to Jack-10 suited. I was going to call. Even though he has 13 bigs, I was going to call. But then we see a raise here on Mikeko. And this player folds. So he's stealing. I don't think I'm with 13 bigs. Great play. Great play, bro. It's not bad play, but really you have to have such a narrow range to do it, and I feel like a lot of players just do it way too often, and they'll do it with hands like ace-10, but even then they really only have a few hands they can do it with for value, like aces and kings and queens. Even then, queens would probably shove pre, so really they have way too narrow a range to be doing that with for it to be good. Fold there, fold there, fold there. So basically we're just chilling at this point. Are we going to open with ace-5 suited? Actually, it's offsuit. What am I talking about? I'm going blind. I'm going to be folding 3-9. I mean, we get a min open, but it's on the final table. It's from early position. Sorry, it's from early position. So we're going to still want to play pretty snug at this point, especially in a situation where I think he had us covered or pretty close to it. We don't really want to get into too many confrontations when, you know, 9th place money is only 190 bucks at this point. So you got to be pretty snug at the start of final tables in a lot of situations. We get shoves, and he wins. Queen Jack beats ace 10. Jack on the turn. So we're still at 9 players. Bertelson's getting pretty unlucky. We fold 7 deuce. I think we fold ace 5. Let's see if Bertelson's goes. Nope. King 4. Gonna fold Jack 3. Ace Queen. Yeah, that looks promising. Oh yeah, fate shoved. We see rejam from Nicky loose. Ace Jack loose to Ace King suited. The shove's not bad. In all honesty, it is kind of bad. I mean, he's got more chips than Bertelsons. He's basically in a fight with Bertelsons, Giordano, Hustler, and Lifebook. You know, 5 players, including himself, that are in a fight for between 5th and 9th place. 5th place is 600 bucks, 9th is 190. You know, that's not a small amount of change. That's a fair amount of money. And for him to bust a 9th in a spot where he was even with other players is kind of not that great. So to be shoving with ace jack off and 14 bigs under the gun, no, it's not good. In this ICM situation, it's not a good play. He stands to lose much more than he stands to gain in that spot. That's why it's good to come into final tables with big stacks, because of the ICM pressure, you're going to be able to just, you know, win a lot more pots without showdown. We have ace queen off here, and we get folds. We were going to go with it in a lot of situations. King deuce suited, going to fold. Queen 5 off. See what's up. He actually 2.82x raises, which is strange. And I searched him up, and he seems to be more of a fun player. So we'll see what's up with him in the future. Okay. Gonna fold. I think I'm gonna try and finish the entire video now. We'll see what's up. Not right now. I'm saying, like, I think I'm looking at the time and how many hands we have left. And I think I'm just gonna make this a more extended video and just run it right to the end. We fold. Oops. Queen 3, we're going to fold. Jack 5, we're going to fold. Folding Jack 8 as well, I'm thinking. Yep. Playing pretty snug at this point. I mean, look at the stack sizes. There's some really short stacks at 14, 9, 12, and 6 big lines. And then there's some middling stacks like me with 26 and 24 bigs. And then there's some big stacks with 49 and 37 bigs. So the middle stacks like Mikeko and I, we just kind of have to chill. We have to wait for some other of these stacks to battle it out, either get eliminated or double up. So that way, you know, we don't bust out. Now, I am going to defend this one. This is probably one of the worst hands I'm defending at this point, just because we still have a king. We still have a hand that can make a straight. And it's still a pretty strong hand. We only need 19% to call. We don't want to get too crazy with the post flop. So basically looking to flop a king and go from there. Nicky Luz understands this. He bets really small. We only need 20% to continue. I was highly considering, do I make it like a bluff raise at this, or do I like a float? But the thing is, I would highly consider floating if I had the king of clubs. That way I can make a move at it later. But even then, with the ICM pressure that's in place, I don't even know if I should have called with king 9 offsuit pre-flop. I'm kind of thinking that was a bit ambitious in itself, because a lot of the value that I have in my defense is that I understand how to use blockers and certain, well, yeah, blockers I have to my advantage in bluffing on later streets. And I can't really apply much of that pressure if I'm the one at risk. So I could fold this pre-flop and like have king 10 be the worst hand I call. I do fold this and end up losing some precious chips. They're going down to 24, 23 big blinds. 2.82x raise again. He gets punished. I mean, like, this guy shoves with 14 bigs and he folds. So you know from there that that's pretty incorrect. He does it again. Works for him this time. We get pocket 8s. I like to just open ship. We got 23 bigs in a spot where there's both a 17 and 8 big blind stack behind, but there's also a 51 big blind stack behind us. And so I really don't want to be min raising and then get shoved on with pocket 8s by a hand like Queen Jack suited from Nicky Luz. So he's not going to be calling, but he's going to be regenerating with that for sure. So I don't want to lose my equity, and I'd rather just win it right there. 4, going to fold. Ace-6 of diamonds. If Nicky Luz didn't open, I would have called this jam by Hustler. So it's a good thing that wasn't the case because he had ace-queen. We did lose Bertelson's on a past hand. So now we're down to 6 players. We actually lost a couple players, KK and Bertelson's. So average stacks got a little bit deeper at this point. I do jam on Lifebook here with 5-8 suited, and I like the jam. With there being stacks, Lifebook can't really call off that wide. He's going to get eliminated this hand if he loses, and there's a number of other stacks, including me, but Mikeko and Hustler also have stacks that are shallow, and the difference between 6th and 2nd place is pretty significant. I mean, if you get 6th at this point, you get $450, but if you can make it all the way, sorry, not to 2nd, if you can make it all the way to 3rd, you get $1,100. And so that's what us 4 are fighting for, per se. So he has to call with a tight range. And even with that tight range he's calling with, this suited, like, gapping hand doesn't do too badly. It's decent equity still. So I like it. It's not like it's going to be easily dominated. We're going to fold Queen Deuce, though. Fold 3-8, fold 6-2. Basically, even though we've lost chips at this point, I think we came into the final table like 319,000. We've managed to find our way to the final 6. And we're going to try and do what we can at some point to get more chips, but right now we don't need to force anything. Got 20 bigs, we got to know what we're going to do. We actually lost Mikeko this hand. So here's what happened. That 2.82x raise again, and then he jammed. And he jammed with King 8 suited, which I think is total fuck up by him. I mean, that's a great hand to be calling with preflop. And maybe the fact that he only had 17 bigs to his name, and the fact that Christie has been opening 2.82x and then folding probably made it so that Mikeko wanted to just win those chips there. But I don't love it a lot with the fact that Hustler has 17 bigs and the fact that he's got other players to his left that have similar stack sizes. So Mikeko busting 6 there. We got 5 deuce for not playing this. 8-6 suities. I do fold with the Nicky Luz there. I don't want to jam my 20 big blind stack because right now, the way the dynamic's set up right now, there are some clear big stacks in Christie with 64 and Nicky with 42 bigs. And there's some clear short stacks with Lifebook and Hustler having 10 bigs. I'll actually move this over now so you can see his chip stack because we lost that player. And then we're the middle stack with 20 bigs. So we're definitely, like, you know, undeniably in 3rd. We don't really want to mess that up too badly. So we fold. 5-7, we fold. 10-7, see what's up. See a jam, we're not calling. We have king deuce, fold. We have ace jack, it's pretty good. And we're just jamming. 18 big blinds, we're all in. We don't want to min raise and have Nicky lose jam on us, because we don't want to put ourselves in a position to bust when Hustler and Lifebook can, get free equity just by watching the all in. This way, it's much harder to call than it is to rejam all in for Nicky loose. So we're good in that aspect. We got king 5 suited. We fold. Queen 7, we fold. 4-6. We get a walk. That's sweet. He shouldn't be giving us a walk, but it's great that he is. We fold here. Ace 10 offsuit. He does his 2.82x opening, and I guess this is similar to what Mikeko was thinking of before. He's opening so wide there with that stack, and for what it's worth too, Hustler just doubled in the previous hand against Christie, so the only player I have to worry about now is Lifebook, and I am in a clear 4th place position with a pretty decent hand against Christie's opening range, so I like to go for the rejam, and it gets through. Almost done. I think we have 67 hands left. We fold here. We get kings. This is pretty good. So we raise, get 3-bet, and it's a pretty dang large size too. So I think he's committing himself, so we're all in, and he calls. And he has queens, so it's a cooler in favor of us at the final table. We just got to hold, and we do. Just like that, we launch into first place, and we go from there. And so now we got 50 big blinds. So now 7-3. Jam, I show him the 7-3 and fold. 6-4, we get a raise from Hustler. He shouldn't be raising too liberally, but he's raising into Lifebook's big blind. We go for the 3-bet here, and he folds. This is where we can apply a lot of pressure, try and lean on stacks as long as Lifebook is alive. We fold here. We get king queen. We raise. We have to call off Lifebook if he shoves. He does jam. We need 36% equity to call. With 10 big blinds, he's going to be shoving every pair, except maybe like deuces and threes, because he knows we're going to be calling him off. He's going to be shoving like every pair, as well as the broadways, and he'll even have, I think he'll even have some sort of like king jack suited and stuff as well. So there's even going to be some that we're dominating. Obviously, so there's going to be times when he has like ace king and like other aces that we're losing to. But with 36% equity against his entire range, I think it's a fine call by us. He ends up having ace jack suited, so we have 38% equity. So let's break even in this specific example. And we get there on the river. Sweet. Yeah, you can see that on the turn we only had 5 outs because the queen of clubs was actually going to give him a flush. So that's pretty sweet. Get those free chips. That money. Run good. Run better. We get pocket 8s. So now we have 65 bigs. There's a 41 big blind stack. And then there's 2 20-ish big blind stacks. It's a pretty good spot for us. He calls. Not a great flop. He checks. We're just going to check behind, evaluate future streets. He bets pretty sizably. He bets about 2/3 into a spot where there's not many bluffs he can have. And the bluffs he can have, like 7-8, we block. So I like just to give it up here. Obviously, he can be bluffing with just random cards. But we don't know that for sure yet. He had been getting a little bit out of line though. To an extent. I guess not yet. He calls here. We call here. And he leads. We call. And then he bets all in. And this is when I started to get kind of suspicious. I do fold in this spot. Because I'm thinking my reasoning is that, he can have all the flush draws here. He can have 5-6. But he's also going to have some sets, like, set of 4s. He's also going to have queen jack in his range too. Some better jacks too. Sometimes he'll have ace jack that he just decides to blast off with. But I have not seen his hands at showdown yet when he gets this aggressive, but he had been starting to get fairly aggressive like this, and I was starting to become a little suspect. We'll see what's up. We get 10-7. Jams. Jack 9. Ace 7. Min raise. We get a jam. I just fold. It's fine. 6-7. At this point, I'm starting to get kind of tired, but adrenaline, though. There was a lot of adrenaline in me at this point with the amount of money that was at stake. I know for 4th place, you get $800. 3rd, it's $1,100. 2nd, it's $1,500. And 1st is $2,000. So I was pretty energized at this point for sure. but also kind of tired. I just wanted to sleep. It was like 7 a.m. almost. We have king queen. I decided to limp versus Nicky loose. I don't really want to raise and have him jam on me with this hand. He checks. I go for a small c-bet. He folds. Continue barreling on like a jack turn. He bets. We're just going to fold. We have ace-8 suited. We raise. He goes for a 3-bet. And, you know, we had been raising quite a bit. So I can understand his 3-bet. But then I also thought, you know, what kind of hands, like, really, we block a lot of the good hands. They're going to want to continue here, right? So, and also we have decent equity when called. So let's just shove all in. You know what I'm saying? Because how can he really call? We have him getting two out of line with our 4-bet jams. This is probably the first time we're getting out of line with it, besides the one against like earlier when we had king queen suited. But even then, that was like a value shove versus the 17.1 3-bet rate, like percentage. Against Nicky loose, I was thinking more along the lines of he can't really call. He's gonna have enough lefts in his range here, and if he does call, he's gonna have like kings and queens, and we still have like 30-something% against those with our suited ace. And so I'm fine with turning this hand into as one of our 4-bet bluffs, and he does end up folding, so it's a great chip pickup for us. And then we're about to go and break this last hand before break. We get a raise, and I call here. I'm okay with the call. It's not too bad. What percentage do we need pre-flop? We only needed 30%. There's some better hands, but we're in position with the queen. He c-bets, we only need 20%. Like, he c-bet real small. This is what threw me off. If he c-bet larger, I would have folded, but I decided to float, and I don't like this float. We have better hands we can float with. If we had a queen of clubs, I'd like this float a little bit more. That way, well, we can see what's up on future streets. We have a little bit more equity at least. We turn a 4, and he continues to bet pretty small, so I decided to call, and he still bets small. And I thought to myself, I really tanked for a while in this hand. This is why this is the last hand before break, even though it was played at like 6:53. I tanked for a while in this river decision because I thought, you know, he had been blasting off. Every time before, he had just blasted off in the turn. Whereas this time, he's 3-barreling. And so I wasn't sure what kind of hands he was going to have, but we didn't have any club blockers. So he could, for what it's worth, have a couple clubs in his hand. He could, even though we block it, have king-queen. Especially if it has clubs in it, right? Because we don't block the queen of clubs. He could have, like, a queen 10. So, I mean, the problem is with that is that we block the queens. And these are all the thoughts that are going through my head. I did elect to make the call, and I think this is a bit of a spewy call. And he did end up showing me ace-king, so nice job there. And it makes sense he has the ace of hearts because it's less likely for us to have the backdoor heart, you know, come in because he actually has the nut hearts. So it's less likely for us to have the flush, so we can value bet, you know, wider. So it makes sense. So nice hand by him. I go off to break, kind of reset at that point because I hadn't really reset. I was kind of just in the moment, and I needed some time to just kind of like cool off and remember that there's a lot of money at stake, just to, you know, think clearly and not to like blow up. So we have 8-10 suited. Another thing that went through my mind in the last hand was that if I do end up giving chips to Christie, at least I'm giving them to a player on my right and not a player on my left. With Christie on my right, I can make better decisions against him in the future. So I limp 8-10 suited against Nicky loose. He checks. I flop a 10. I bet. He folds. Good stuff. We have 7 deuce. I'm not playing that. Queen 6. I do start stealing. Unfortunately, he jams, so we have to fold. Pocket 6s. It folds to me. I was thinking in my head, like, do I jam or do I just call? And I figured in my head, if I had pocket 8s, I would jam here. But with 7s and lower, I think it's better just to play it as a call and play it more as a set mine versus these stack sizes. Versus more shallow stack sizes, like 18 big blinds, I could probably go for a jam. Also, if I had more tips myself, I can go for a jam. But at this point, it's kind of high variance to go for the jam, I think. It's close. I'd like to hear your opinions on this, comments, understanding like if there's any sort of way I can mathematically check this out. You know, at what point is it better to just call from the big blind in this spot versus at what point is it better to rejam? Anyways, not a great flop. Check, check, check. Whatever turn, but I'm not going to start betting. I could start betting, but they have enough 8x in their range they check back the flop with that I'm not going to bet with 6s here and just see I'm going to see the river and go from there. 5 of diamonds is not great. Nicky loose does bet, which doesn't make a huge amount of sense. I'm not sure what type of player he is. The type of player who would check, you know, ace-king with the ace of diamonds, or the type of player who would just start betting here because he senses weakness. But he does bet, and I do fold. I don't love the spot. That's why I'd like to hear your guys' take on it. Get jack 6. We're going to fold. We get deuce 3. I do go for a steal, and we get a raise, and I like just not to continue. Ace king, I raise, and then I face a 3-bet here. And then I had some decisions to make. In a standard spot, this is when stuff got a little bit strange, because I played this hand very differently, almost what looks like donkish, but I had reasons for it. I played this hand consciously differently than what I would normally do. I have 32 big blinds. I'm tied for second with Nicky Luce, but you know, realistically, I am the guy in second. The only guy who can bust me is Christie. He's putting in a committing sized 3-bet. I need 33% to call. I think against his range, he's going to have here a lot of ace kings, ace queens, but also aces, kings, queens, jacks, 10s, 9s, those kind of big pairs, some 8s. And so I'm either like chopping, dominating, or more often or not, you know, flipping. At a very high percentage of the time, I'm flipping here. I don't want to flip. With this much money on the line, like, I don't want to give free equity away to Nicky Luce and Hustler by them witnessing an all-in and hoping that Christie wins. So I need 33% to call. I like to just call here, and I figure he's going to be c-betting everything. So I'm only going to be able to continue on flops that are like ace high and king high, and then some other flops if you like bet small and that are dry. But basically, if I'm only going to see a flop and I'm against like an underpair like jacks, I'm only going to flop an ace or king like 33% of the time. So I need 33%. So I'm basically getting break-even pot odds here. Fortunately, I do flop that ace, and he bets a fair size. And this board is wet, and we don't block any of the draw cards. We don't have the king of spades in our hand. So I do another conscious decision to not just call here like I normally would and let him barrel off, but instead to jam. And the reason why I jam here is, you know, in reality to take the pot down, which is very fishy in itself in saying that. But tournaments are different than cash games in that you win by where you finish. And I felt that by getting the amount of chips in this pot right now at 650,000, I could take advantage of the table, you know, with much better opportunity at winning the tournament than if I was to call down here and not really know where I was at, you know, versus an unknown range in Christie who could have draws. Like, he could have jack 10, you could have spades, they're going to keep barreling, right? And I don't want to give myself that high variance. If he wants to call off my raise, no, go ahead. But I am basically guaranteed to have the best hand right now. He can have 8s and 9s, but a lot of time he's going to have like 10s, jacks, and queens. And he's also going to have ace, king, and ace, queen as well. And there's only one combination of set of aces left, right? So if he calls here, we're almost always in pretty darn good shape. And he's going to have to fold here a lot of the time too, which he does fold. And we win these chips. Obviously, if he barrels off, we win. Like, you know, the rest of the chips, you get $1 million. But there's also, he still would have a lot of equity in that as well. So it's not like we're guaranteed to win those chips. So I like just guaranteeing our chips right now. Basically, it feels like winning without showdown, because it is, because there's too much equity in letting him see a turn and river. So we get jack 5 suited. Folds. 420. We got 43 hands left. Folds. I would love to hear you guys' thoughts on that ace king hand, by the way. I like the way I played it. I would never normally play it like that. I would normally just, you know, 4-bet jam pre-flop. Or if I do end up calling somehow, I would just call in position post-flop. So I consciously played it differently just so that way I could guarantee, you know, in pre-flop, guarantee staying in the tournament. And then post-flop, you kind of guaranteeing, you know, having those chips. So Christie bombs it again on the turn. What's the sizing he makes it? Yeah, he bombs it for overpot again. So he's been doing a lot of that bombing on the river, and we've only seen his hand when he's not bombed on the river, like when he had the ace king before. So I'm getting a bit suspicious, you know, obviously. See what's up with Christie. We get queen 8 suited, folds, ace jack. I raise the intention to get in against Nicky Luce. I've been limping a lot before. He has not seen those hands, so he has no idea what my limping range is. And so I'm fine with getting in if he wants to shove, but I don't want to like let him see free cards by limping pre-flop, because that hasn't done anything before. We go for a steal. Everybody folds. We have a big stack now. They have 30 bigs and 20 and 17, whereas we have 43 big blinds. We have queen 6. Oh, my hold manager might be... Yeah, we just got to wait one moment. It'll come back in a sec. It's just not responding for the moment. It does this every now and then when it gets used for a long period of time, and I'm clicking through the hands. so it's working kind of hard. So we're just gonna wait and see what is up. Okay, so we're back. Yeah, the Hold'em manager works now. It's great. We're gonna go for a steal with Queen 6, and Hustler's doing his favorite move at the rejam. He understands. He's doing a pretty good job of realizing that we have a weak range. I mean, because we're trying to steal so much. So we'll probably have to steal a little bit less versus him, or call off a little bit wider. We need 20% to call here. Jack 5 suited. We do call. We flop a jack. That's sweet. Checks. I feel I have the best hand a lot of the time here, but no point betting because we don't get anything better to call. I mean, worse to call. He bets. We call. Evaluate the river. Check, check. We win. He has Queen 9 off. Decide to just go for a small bluff. I see a jam. Folds. It's perfect. 3-6. I don't think I'm stealing. Psych. I'm stealing. At this point, it doesn't matter. You can steal with like any 2 for the most part. Because even though Hustler's been reacting against us, he hasn't been reacting too much. And Nicky Loose is just shut down completely. 6-8. Go for the raise. Hustler again is rejamming, so might have to consider that a bit better. We actually get a walk. It's sweet. Ace-8 of diamonds. See raise. I decide not to 3-bet. I don't see much point in 3-betting this kind of hand. I like just calling with the kind of the middling hands, like the suited aces, like when we're 4-handed like this, because Chrissy's going to have such a wide range. We can call here because we have like a stronger range on average than him when we call. He's going to be opening up all sorts of weak hands. Like you've seen the kind of hands I was opening from the button. I had 3-6 off and stuff like that. Granted, those were pretty bad, but those are the type of hands I'm sure Christy will open it with as well. So, you know, people could say that we should 3-bet because then we'll just win the hand right there. But I think, you know, if there's an ace on the board, he's going to try and barrel against that. He's been barreling. You've seen it before, you know, 100%, 100%. He's been doing a lot of that where he just like, you know, bets, you know, the flop and then bombs the turn. So, you know, if we have an ace, I'm just going to stick with it for sure. And I mean, if we flop trip 8s, I'm going to stick with it as well. So no point in leading, you know, we can have anything here. We don't have to have trip 8s. We can have air. He c-bets pretty chunky. Check call. No point in check raising. If he has a king, he's going to go with anyway, but we want to keep all his bluffs in range. We check again. He bombs it again, and I snap call. Curious to see what he's got. He actually has jack 3 suited. So now we finally got to figure out what he was bombing turn with all these times, and he just went from having the second in chips to drawing dead, finishing 4th. He basically gifted me the tournament, and that was really appreciated. And now we have a situation where I have 81 big blinds, I have 80 big blinds, the other 2 stacks have 16 and 15 respectively. I have 1.2 mil chips, and they each have 200,000 chips. This is perfect. So in this situation, this is a great ICM situation for me. I have, you know, I'm most likely to get first. Third place gets $1,100, second gets $1,500, first gets $2,000. I start jamming every single hand. Doesn't matter what I have. Any 2 cards, I jam all in. You know, he does that. I have a good hand to have here. Pocket 8s. You know, he folds. It folds to me. I had King 6, 6-10. Doesn't matter. All in. And I type in the chat. I'm like, who wants second? $400 difference. I mean, it's so sick because if they call, you know, it doesn't mean much to them to win, because they still can get third place if they like win the hand. You know, they still get third place later on. But if they lose, they're guaranteed to get third place. And Hustler and Nicky Loose know that, and they're the ones that are going to get second or third. They just have to figure out between them who's the one who's going to get $400 more. And so I'm going to do whatever I can to pressure. So obviously I can't call off, but when it folds to me, I can push with any 2 cards. Fold, all in. All in. Face a jam, not calling. Folds, all in. 9 deuce off, doesn't matter, I'll just win. King 2, doesn't matter, all in. So now we got like 90 bigs, they each have like 10. They give me a walk. All in. All in. I mean, it was pretty fun, I'm not gonna lie. When you're kind of brain dead from being up all night to realize that you can just shove all in with not have to think and just win chips, it's pretty good. He shoves, I show him 6-7, I'm like, I can't call. And at this point, it kind of is a bit of a separation now. Hustler has 10 bigs, Nicky has 7 bigs, and I could jam 6-4. I do like to fold this time. There's kind of an exploitation thing in that players, when they start to panic a little bit. They kind of forget, correct strategy, and they start to panic when they see that they were tied and now the other guy's getting an advantage on them when there's so little wiggle room left. So I felt that Nicky Luce was going to call me with a wider range than before. Like before, they could really only call me with like, tens, jacks plus type deal. They can't even really call me with ace king. Because they still only have like 67% equity against 100% jamming range. Because for what it's worth, I'm jamming aces as well. People will assume that I'm going to be mid-opening kings and aces, and so that way they can't include those in my range. No, I'm jamming aces and kings as well, because it's the correct thing to do. So that way my all-in range is stronger. In this spot, it's 100% rather than 100% minus aces and kings. So I get ace-6 all in, and Nicky Luce tanks for a bit. Then he calls. So Hustler like snap folds, and he shows me king queen suited, which at the time I was kind of questioning. I was kind of thinking to myself, like, should he really be calling here? And then I thought to myself, I looked on Poker Stove, which I don't have on this computer, but I have it on my laptop. On Poker Stove, king queen suited against a 100% button, or not button, but 100% range, which is what I have in this spot, has on average 63% equity. That's not that much. Honestly, you should have about 70% equity or more to be going in with these spots. And so I checked. I'm like, what does ace king suited, not offsuit, ace king suited have against 100% range? It only has like 67, 69% equity. So even then, if you have ace king or ace king suited in Nicky Luce's spot, like I guess you can call up with ace king suited because you're the one that's shorter than Hustler. But if you're in Hustler's spot, in this exact spot, like when Nicky Luce like folds, you have to fold ace king suited as well. It's just that sick. Just because the equity that, my 100% jamming range is going to have against your hand. Which is why, because I know this, it's so sick that I can just push any two. And so basically, the only hands you can really call with are like 9s plus. 9s, you have like 71% equity. It's better to have 9s than it is to have ace king when you face 100% jamming range. And so yeah, you can only really call with 9s plus. Or even like 10s plus, basically. If you're in Hustler spot, I'd only be calling with 10s or jacks plus. And Nicky Luce, I'd call it with like 8s, 9s plus, and ace king. More like ace king suited. If I have ace king off, I guess I'm like, sighing and calling. If I have ace queen suited, I guess I'm sighing and calling. But it's so gross. I'm definitely not calling with worse than that. Anyway, it was nice to hold. So Nicky Luce gets $1,100, and we go in heads up with a 102 to 9 big blind advantage. So at this point, we're just looking for a spot, and simple as that. We don't want to overkill. We just we push and we have it. We don't want to give him a chance to have life in this. We just want to snuff him out right now. If he shoved, I would have called with 4s. Would he fold? I'm not shoving a 9-3. That's pretty weak, because there's no pressure now on him. If he gets a decent hand, he's calling. So it's not like there's any ICM pressure like there was before. This time he's guaranteed at least second. He's nothing to lose and everything to gain. So we can't apply pressure, so we have to have at least a decent hand and we go all in. He shoves. We have a king, we're all in. He folds. Folding the 4-10. Folding the weak hand there. He folds, which is nice because I can't call with 4-6. Folding my 8-3, so a lot of weak hands. I would call with this if he shoved, but he did fold. I jam my jack X, my medium jack. Queen 4, for what it's worth, I would call here if he jammed, but he folded. Weak 4-8 off, I'm folding. And 4-6, this is the last hand of the tournament. He jams with 6-3, jack 3. We need 41% equity to call. At the time, I honestly, like looking back on in hindsight, I was talking with Ali Mzirovic about it, and it's a spot where really I should be calling off with like 6-7 suited plus, because he's shoving like jacks 3 off is pretty much the bottom of his shoving range. I gave him like a 72.5% jamming range, and it could even be tighter than that. He was folding a lot, but at the same time we were both getting bad cards. Like I was getting pretty shitty cards. He could have just had a bad run, so we have no idea, what part of that range he really was folding and how much he was just getting shitty cards as well. And so he's probably like jack 3 is really low in his range. I had him like, I think it was like 10-5 off is like the worst kind of like hands he's gonna have, and then like he's gonna have like for suited hands it'd be like 9-5 suited and stuff like that, and like 10-3 suited and stuff like that he's gonna be shoving. So you know, we get lucky here. I mean, we only needed 41%, so I thought we can call a little wider. We have 45%, and we flop the 4 and ship it. We win it. And this was at 7:15 a.m. Took 6 hours, 15 minutes to win the tournament. And I mean, this is how I did it. And just kind of one step at a time. A good way to do it is to take each situation moment by moment on the tournament. You can't look too far ahead. You got to focus on what you can control now. There was one point in the tournament, the final 2 tables, I had 3 big blinds, 15,000 chips. And I just knew, I mean, I just had to run it up. And you have to know all your options at different points of tournaments. If you got, 15 big blinds, you can't play like you have 50. You have to like all in or fold basically, with some options for limping periodically. And you just got to know what options are available to you and not get too ahead of yourself and not get too flustered when things start going wrong. You just take a step back, breathe, and realize I'm still in the tournament. What can I do now to improve my chances of winning? This has been Scott Hedley for, I guess, my YouTube channel at this point, aka DamitScottie, and see you around. Thanks for listening.